Many of us carry relational injuries from the past, and this often manifests as a feeling of a lack of safety in relationships. So we're going into these relationships and we don't feel safe. We feel in love and we're excited, but we don't feel fully safe because something could happen. The other person could run off. We could get scared and shut down. Things happen in relationships that are emotionally upsetting. Now, when you look at the past, your past, you can start figuring out why you're having the behaviors you're having, like where the disappointments were when you were growing up, how you were treated or tended to, what your parents did when you were disappointed or had something happen that was hurtful. How did your parents take care of you? And when you start looking at that, you'll start seeing how you developed strategies, coping strategies, to get through those times when you weren't actually getting the kind of support you needed. Our interactions with our partners do bring up our deepest wounds. So anything that had happened in the past will get triggered to be healed, hopefully, in the current relationship or the next relationship. So for example, let's suppose you have abandonment issues, or you were always put down, or nobody ever said, "Oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you." When little things happen in the relationship, and they could be big things, these wounds, these attachment needs, these feelings of vulnerability can come up and just swamp us. And then we go into reactive behavior. We go more into the limbic emotional brain, which is more automatic, and we lose full access to our more integrated brain. And this causes reactivity, and reactivity generally makes everything worse in terms of relationships because people start reacting to each other, and then we're in a tizzy and we're not actually talking in a calm, vulnerable way where we're connecting. One of the things that we have to do is take responsibility for our wounds and say, yeah, this situation in the past wounded me, and now I've got the fallout from it coming up, and I'm not trusting you, my partner, because all this wounding is coming up. So the first thing you have to do is acknowledge your wounds. Start thinking about what happened. Where am I very sensitive, and where am I hurt, and where do I get triggered? What actually triggers me? And for example, for an anxious partner, the trigger would often be the feeling of abandonment or the lack of connection. And for the avoidant partner, the trigger would often be excessive emotionality or the unhappiness of their partner, which triggers their feeling that they can't do it right, they're not doing enough. Learn to communicate without blame. So it's not anybody's fault this is happening. This is like a big work ground where we have work to do. We have stuff to figure out if we're going to mend these parts of ourselves and mend these wounds so that we can learn to connect in a healthier way. And we help each other with this. This is part of creating a secure relationship. We help each other with our attachment needs. So if I know my husband needs something emotionally a certain way, then I try to meet that need so that he feels safe, and vice versa. If we're trying to push away the other person's attachment needs, we're not going to help heal this relational wound that's happening where both of our wounds are sort of running into each other. Both partners need to be accountable for their behavior and work towards creating safety in the relationship. Both partners have responsibility in that area. So here's some questions to ask yourself. What are your deepest fears in a relationship? How are these fears tied to past experiences? Have you begun taking responsibility, not for what happened to you, but that it's your job to help heal these things, whether you do that by yourself or with a partner? Are you and your partner able to remain open and communicative when you're both triggered? That's a really important capacity to learn to develop if you are going to work through relational problems. Relationships have incredible potential to be transformative and healing, and they offer opportunities to grow, but they also bring in pain, frustration, difficulty, while we're in the process of figuring this all out. Ultimately, we have to decide if the relationship we're in provides enough safety and nourishment that it's the right relationship to work this out in. Because if it's an unsafe relationship, if it's abusive or highly critical, for example, it may not be the right relationship to try to work this out in. When both partners are committed to fostering connection, love, and mutual growth, then you're in the right relationship to do this work.